What happened? Good morning. This video is about the electoral process in this country, which is nothing but lies and fraud on the people. There is no authority for the federal government, parliament, whatever it likes to call itself, or any state government, parliament, or whatever they like to call themselves, to have electoral acts. And that'll become evident within a few minutes. This constitution is the annotated constitution, which I've used for quite a while. And Toomey says this one and the green one are exactly the same. That's a lie. Sorry, Anne, but you keep telling lies all the time. Other people's. Stop repeating them. This, in the first 260 pages, explains what I'm about to tell you now. We have an enterprising gentleman contacted me last week and tried to demand that I answer his questions. When we went on his post, he had one picture of allegedly himself and nothing else. So obviously the guy was a troll, or just somebody who wanted to cause trouble, or a lawyer or someone like that. He was pretty well dressed in the picture, but get off his picture. This is the Commonwealth Constitution Act 1900 UK. It is the enabling act which enables us to have a constitution. And this act is the act that is in the red constitution, and then it's explained by the framers exactly what it means. And that's what everybody doesn't want you to know. Now, at Federation, this Act demands, under the provisions of 106, that the Constitution of the State of Western Australia, which is this one, 1889, is the Constitution put there for Western Australia. This one is the one with 32 sections missing that the Parliament, pretending to be a government, decided it could put in place. And it continued to refer to this and nothing else. The problem we have is this prohibited Western Australia ever being lawfully constituted. Was it set up? Yes, under the provisions of 106, 107, 108 and 109. 107, 108 and 109 established the state of Western Australia under the Constitution. It went from a colony to a state. Fact. To be lawfully constituted, it needed this Constitution in place, not this one. So it never was, and they know it. And they've always known it, and they've always lied about it. Continually lied about it. Didn't misappropriate the truth, make a mistake, dream, or anything else. They lied. And they continued lying right up until 1980 with this one. Then they played with it again. I need that. Here. Thanks. Sorry. Now, I said, and I've always said, contained in Chapter 1 is the fact that the Governor selects all the candidates. He does select all the candidates, and I'll explain how. This is the letters patent constituting the office of Governor. Every state has one. Every state has an original state constitution, which is locked in place under the provisions of 106 of the Constitution, which allows the states to continue their constitutions subject to the Commonwealth Constitution. There is no power under the Commonwealth Constitution to alter, interfere with in any way these constitutions as a letter patent or any other way. Any text or verse or statement to the contrary is an outright lie, and there's plenty of them. Now, the next thing I always brought up, this is the lawful, that other clown wanted, the lawful instructions to the Governor. Also a letters patent. Most people didn't even know this existed. A lot of politicians did and have ignored it. and people I know in political parties do know about this and have ignored it. The reason being, they didn't want you to know that every single election ever held in this country is invalid, because it was done under an act put together by the Parliament first of the states, and then the Commonwealth decided it could do it. But they didn't tell you the truth, because this act, have a look at it and read it if you can. If you can't, contact us and we will send you a copy, because we've now got it on our computer for that purpose. And we did send it to the gentleman who was making the claims, and he didn't understand it. Well, I can comprehend that. This says, this Act may be cited as the Electoral Act 1889 and shall be divided into parts as hereinafter follows. Part 1, registration of voters. Part 2, conduct of elections. Part 3, offences and penalties. Part 4, miscellaneous. This Act shall apply to elections to the now subsiding Legislative Council and to any legislative body or bodies hereafter to be constituted. In other words, it's an Act which is one of the acts which remained after Federation. Rob Sudi, Tim Prater and others would say there were residual acts. This is a residual act of all residual acts. What this does, when you look at the attachments to this, this is a notice of claim. There is about 10 of them in the back of this, of how you become a member of Parliament or a candidate. How you become it. The rest of the Act up the front explains all the process of how it must be done. Not how you want it to be done, because it's an imperial act. Now, the whole idea is, if you fulfill the requirements of the front of this, and there's a lot of people who do, including all of the independents that have put themselves up for election, except for the fact they can't do it the way they did it, and we don't have a lawful governor to do it. Until we get a lawful governor, which we need now, England to supply us a lawful governor, so that that lawful governor can take these claims. So you, me, and everybody else who owns their land and meets the requirements of this Act can become a candidate in the election. It creates a pool of people, as I've explained before. And the governor, as I said before, selects from that pool of people a smaller pool which you vote for. All explained in here. And if that person who contacted me can't see that, go and buy some new glasses or wake up to yourself. You're talking nonsense. This is the official document. It is a residual act after Federation, and it comes into this country under Clause 5 of the Constitution and is legislated by the Colonial Laws Validity Act. Now, our Red Constitution says even if this Act, the Colonial Validity Act, has never been passed, it is beyond the legislative authority of any colony to change, alter, interfere or any other way with an Imperial Act. How does that affect us? Clause 8 says when the colonies become states, the Boundaries Act no longer applies. So there go all your electoral boundaries. There goes your electoral boundaries. They've gone down the toilet. Now you've got a problem, because people need to wake up. The so-called election in this state on the 8th of last month was a fraud. Was it? Yes. This book, this document says so. As you can see, the royal identifier, it is factual. Now, I'll go back to Clause 8 and says, however, when the Commonwealth is established, it's established as a self-governing colony of England. And that Act applies. The Boundaries Act applies. So where's the boundary then? 12 nautical miles offshore. Put it anywhere else and you're full of crap. As for the national parks you're creating round the outside of Australia, states, pull your heads in, you idiots. You have no control whatsoever over the waters between the shoreline and 12 nautical miles out. You want to argue that, come and see me. I'll show you in the Constitution where you are full of crap. You're a liar. And you're doing it for control. So now let's have a lesson for this so-called Western Australian government, so-called elected, that now suddenly wants to have somebody look into itself. An inquiry into the election? If this does not form part of it, then your inquiry is flawed in law and is blatant treason against the people and, guess what, the Crown of England. Halsey's Laws of England, Volume 2 at 284. That's a felony treason. The penalties are permanent for you. Read it and laugh, or whatever you want, because at the end of the day, you people are going to stand trial for blatant treason. And you, Dodgy Roger, you are not the Premier of this state. You are actually the CEO of the entity known as the state, created under Section 8 of the Acts Amendment Repeals Court and Legal Practice Act. So from that alone, you're a liar and a fraud. You can laugh and jump up and down, and Albus Sneezy, who isn't even using his correct name, isn't it Mr. Ellery? Anthony Ellery, isn't that your correct name? Did you change your name by deed poll to give your father a say in your life? Your father being a gentleman off the Italian ship that created you along with your mother. And you were not poor. You lived in a council flat. Yes, you did. But those council flats were built for people to rent. And as your grandmother and grandfather had enough money to pay for them, they did. And they put your mother up and you in them. That came from one of your people. And we've got it in writing. You want to dispute it? Good. Come out and prove. I'm chasing the flies. They decide they want to be camera experts. Now, having said that, every single politician in this country is guilty of treason. Do you have to know? If you're going to run for a candidate, you have to know what this document says. You have to be elected under this document. Otherwise, you've got a problem. You don't exist. Now, let's have another look at what I'm saying. This creates a huge problem because the Australian Electoral Commission currently is paying the political parties $10 for each vote that they get from you. Do they have a vested interest in pushing the political parties, the big four, or the big two, or the one parading around and they're four all along? No different views. Take over this country, run it. Is that what's going on? Yes. And the gentleman that you did that video on gun control, thanks, that was absolutely correct. The term is the hand of correction on the seat of understanding works wonders with kids. Try it. It works. And that's what you should be doing. Correcting them when they're little. But you're not doing it. That's why we've got criminals running around with guns. And now they're trying to take the guns off us. And idiots like Jackie Lambie, who said, oh, kick the American soldiers out of this country. You ever stop to think of the consequences of doing that, Jackie Lambie? Obviously not. China has a 100-year lease on the Darwin Harbour. They have built an international airport south of Karratha. Did you know that? You did, because it was all over the papers. If you didn't, then obviously you improve your reading ability because you're not listening or not looking. Then they've got a deep water port right next to it. And they've got an iron ore mine. Has anybody been there to check how much iron ore is going out of that port? No. How do I know that? There's people there that I know have told me. And they are willing to give evidence against you. They're willing to give evidence. There's two separate camps. One for the Chinese and one for the Australians. And what you're doing with gas is nothing short of theft. So you can wallow in this The state election just held. Malcolm McCusker, from an old friend of mine who knows you, or knew you, he passed away a short time ago, he said you're an honourable person. Let's see some of that honour and have this dismissed. Have the whole election thrown out on the grounds it was a fraud against the people and made contrary to a residual imperial act which is binding on everybody, including myself. When you look at what I prepared for yous, and the guy said last night, and he was correct, this is the letter. This letter says, I, Wayne Kenneth of the family Glew, attended at your polling booth 2 votes on the 8th of March 2025, and I did. I went there to vote. And when I saw there were no candidates, I had already prepared this because I've been there before and I knew under this act you hadn't had any. So I put on there were no lawful candidates available for me to vote for at your polling booth. The question of law then becomes why not? Two words, why not? Not the fact that they weren't there, because this act proves they weren't lawfully there. And all your candidates were elected outside of this act, therefore invalid. You don't have legislative authority to create voting acts or election acts. Australian Electoral Commission, fraud. Why would you have an electoral commission run by the federal parliament overseeing the states when at the election who we vote for, one for the lower house, one for the upper state elections, they represent the whole states. Because the Boundaries Act's been removed, they have to represent the whole states. The limit of numbers is limited by the parliament. I get that. But you cannot branch, stack or anything else because it says in the red book that is gerrymandering. That's why it was made that way. That's why they rejected preferential voting, conscription, political parties and all the rest of the crap, and made the supreme, absolute and uncontrollable authority the right of the people. Absolute right without control. What you're trying to say, oh, we produced this act, so you're going to vote that way. What happened to our authority? Did you ask for it? No. And as for the Australia Act and the Treaty of Versailles, the League of Nations and all the other agreements that you come forward with, and United Nations, none of that exists because we've never had a lawful 6 parliaments to create the first federal parliament. It's the representatives of each state that come into the federal parliament and create the first parliament. We only had 5 because Western Australia wasn't lawfully there. Now, was New South Wales lawfully constituted? Yes. In August 1902, it wiped out its constitution, replaced it with another one. Do I have actual evidence of that? New South Wales has it. They've just stated they've changed the status of all magistrates to judges and made a change without authority, because you can't touch it as a letters patent, to the 1902 New South Wales Constitution. I read it, it's in your documents, and that says you just committed blatant treason. You've admitted to it, because yours is 1854, something like that, your original constitution, and that's the one you must put back. Otherwise New South Wales doesn't exist. You're just a bunch of traitors. 1922, no upper house in Queensland. You're just a bunch of traitors. 1934, South Australia and Tasmania removed their constitution, put another one. You're just a bunch of lying traitors. 1975, Victoria did the same. Same thing applies. A bunch of lying, thieving traitors. Don't like that? Our Constitution says you are. You've breached the oath of allegiance you owe to us. None of yous, not even that worm you call a Governor-General who isn't one. She wasn't selected. None of the documents filled out and sent to England. Oh, King Charles gave his blessing. BS. Absolute lies and nonsense. He can't. It has a method of selecting the Governor-General. I read it into a video a couple of weeks ago. If you want a copy, we've got that too. And that is law. It's imperial law. You can't touch it. You cannot change the status of the Governor-General. You can't do anything without the permission of the people, who are supreme, absolutely. Sovereign, absolutely. And our Constitution says the Constitution is above both houses of Parliament, and the Parliament is not supreme. It says the Parliament is not sovereign. It's not even semi-sovereign. Page 794, second paragraph says, Australian Parliament is not like the British Parliament, which is semi-sovereign. It is still controlled by who? By the people in England. And all imperial law, they're not statutes. So, Anne Toomey, when you teach people Magna Carta, Habeas Corpus, 1688, Bill of Rights, Act of Settlement, and the King James Bible, all statutes, you're a liar. That's a lie. And if you keep repeating it, you become party to that lie and part of it. Now let's look at another thing, which is the last thing I'm going to discuss on this right now. Use every person in a position of power in this country are filthy, dirty, treasonous pedophiles. Because you know Howard and his crew and everybody in the Parliament put a moratorium on the investigation into pedophiles because you want to cover up your mates and probably some of yourselves. But it doesn't matter. All the people in the churches who have exercised any authority, you're in the same place. Local government was added to the state constitutions in 1979 because it had no authority before then, and it has none now. The application of that to us without having the control granted by the Constitution is blatant treason. Lying, thieving cretins, a whole lot of you. And those cretins are pedophiles. So you have a lovely day thinking about what I said, because I'm correct and I've got the documents to prove it. They're all here, and in other documents I got here. You think you can get your hands on them? They're spread all over the place already. It's not going to work. It's time for you, dodgy Roger Crook, to get out of our country. And as for this $1 trillion debt, that belongs to the companies with ABN numbers, which are the political parties. It's your debt. You run it up. We got no visible benefit from any of those loans that you claim you took. None of it has anything to do with us. Like that? Too bad. That's how you are. Lying, thieving, pedophile traitors. So you have a lovely weekend.